The Katowice Neon Trail. Skarbek. The building was erected between 1972 to 1974, according to the architect's design, Jorant Jarecki. Today we return to this iconic building, along with its old lighting. The neon tubes are all over the store, almost 500 of them, plus 3 subtitles of Skarbek, both lines as well as block letters on the name of the store. This is a reference to the original neons that used to hang on Skarbek Trove. Follow the Katowice Neon Trail. We will be guided by the guides, Ms. Barbara Zygmanska and Mr. Piotr Fuglewicz, the authors of Walking Guide of Katowice. Mrs. Barbara, how do you remember Skarbek in the old days? Ms. Barbara said, if we're talking about neons in this on the spot, it would be worthwhile to come back to the previous building, which was in the place of Skarbek. Namely, it was a 2-story tenement house from the end of the 19th century, in which on the ground floor were Borynsky delicacies. The company operated there until World War II. Meanwhile, the inhabitants of Katowice, after the war, often used this name slightly puffed up, saying, we're going to Borynsky's. They were very well-stocked delicacies, grocery store, and on the roof there were 2 neon signs in this building. I remember them from my early childhood, like a fog. Namely, there was a neon sign with a mermaid with the inscription, the whole nation builds its capital, and a second neon sign which depicted animals and was there in the inscription, visit the Silesian Zoo. It was their giraffe, if I remember correctly, a monkey and a few more pets. This building has been dismantled in the early 1970s in its place in the years, and as you said, 1972 to 1973 was created Skarbek. Skarbek was designed by famous Katowice architect Jorant Jarecki. The Skarbek was, for those days, a very modern department store. Scales that were on it were specially imported from France, because it was the period when such scales had been used in foreign currency, and Poland did not have any foreign exchange. They were paid for with coal. A few years later, it turns out that these shell castings weren't a good idea, because there were places in which pigeons nested, which is associated with contamination of the entire facade. This was the case until recently, because after 2010, the Skarbek has gone through 2 major repairs. During the first renovation, an external elevator was installed. In 2019, the following old scales, for new, closed, so that pigeons could no longer get inside. The lecturer said, on the newly created Katowice Neon Trail, there is also a thumbnail of Super Sam. Mrs. Barbara, what's the story with Super Sam? Miss Barbara said, this is a very interesting story. You should start with the fact that initially, at the site of today's Super Sam, there was a metallurgical pond, which supplied metallurgical equipment, Marta Steelworks, which was more or less in place of today's super units. All of the land around here was wet. Trade in Katowice took place in such a way as in many cities, mainly on market. But at the beginning of the 20th century, about in 1906, the city councillors came to the conclusion that it causes a mess, noise, and decided to leave this trade out of the market. In the first place, a meat hall was built, which was allocated at the site of the later Hotel Katowice. At the moment, there is a construction site at Skargi Street. This hall was built in 1910 and was one of the first buildings which had reinforced concrete structure. It was a U-shaped building, inside and outside, where also stalls and mostly fresh, raw meat was traded there. Trade in other goods took place next door. Once a month was animal market, where horses, cows, calves, pigs were traded. You can imagine it was dirt, noise, and hustle. In the relationship with this, the Calvary from Katowice decided to build a market hall. The construction took quite a long time. The ground for the construction of the future hall trade was very uncertain because there was a pond there before. Therefore, it was excavated under foundations 14 meters deep, and well foundations of 100 piles were driven into the ground. Reinforced concrete structures prepared by well-known constructor Stefan Breuer, the same one that was also the designer of Katowice Skybot, that is, a skyscraper which is located in the southern part of Katowice. He was also the designer of the first steel bridge construction in the world on the Swudva River. As well, he designed the constructions of buildings, the National Museum, the Museum of the Polish Army in Warsaw, and the Prudential Hotel building in Warsaw. The finished building was 121 meters long, 40 meters wide, and was 60 feet high. It housed 408 commercial stands, and for fish traders, 12 pools have been prepared. This Super Sam, without any damage, survived the war. After the war, it functioned commercially. I remember it from that time. The roof structure has a suspended ceiling, and no one knew that it was such a valuable and special building. Inside there were shops. There was a large Super Sam food store with smaller shops. There was a shoe store. There was a branch of a bank. Mr. Piot said, "It was worth adding that this building has become a place of the first large-scale capitalist store, because at the very beginning of the 1990s, when it exploded in Poland capitalism, German company Future 2 made its Super Sam there. Absolute madness. Simple trick. Bananas cost money, some pennies. In connection with that was the store was stuffed up to the roof with different people who came to buy bananas. And by the way, buy, for example, what was then also a complete novelty, thinly sliced ham, wrapped in paper with a sticker and a barcode that you read at the register. It was really a sign of high civilization at that time. At the same time, this Future 2 led wholesale sales. Therefore, there were queues of trucks in front of it. People were exporting these German goods in mass. At that time, there was no law on the obligation to mark goods in the language of the market on which they are sold. So the whole area used to stock up on this Future 2. If they managed to go bankrupt, I didn't know. I know, it was impossible. Within my opinion, however, after quite a short time, in the order of a year or a few months, the store closed. In front of this store, there were colossal queues, especially since it used all forms of marketing. Today, obvious, and then completely for us, new. So for example, terribly cheap bananas, which were then desirable goods by the way, and other things too, which were also low in price, probably Western, which for us was giving yourself a little luxury. It was probably like this. Tacky thing that didn't even go to Aldi in Germany at the time, while it was such a luxury for us. Mr. Christoph said, Super Sam, in full magnificence, along with the history of the place itself, because it was the first in the former Super Sam space market desirable. A desirable big shop, closed market in the Hall of Great Architecture. On the board you will get acquainted with history of these places, one by one as they become developed and change until contemporary times, which we do not judge. The lecturer said, Neons are not just luminous logos. Behind each of them there is also a history of the place. I encourage you to walk along the Katowice Neon Trail. It is worth seeing why Katowice is called Las Vegas. That's it for us and this episode. Thank you to my guests. I'll talk to you soon. This project is funded by government budgets. The podcasts have been read by Braden Buddy.